The fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon. You control the actions of a daring adventurer finding his way through the castle of a dark wizard who has enchanted it with treacherous monsters and obstacles. In the mysterious caverns below the castle, your odyssey continues against the awesome forces that oppose your efforts to reach the dragon's lair. Lead on, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
Hmm.
うん。
Hmm.
うん。
Hmm.
うん。
Hmm.
うん。
Hmm.
うん。
Hmm. Save me! Save me! Save me! Save me! Save me! Please save me! The cage is locked with a key. The dragon keeps it around his neck. To slay the dragon, use the magic sword. Please save me. The cage is locked with a key. The dragon keeps it around his neck. To slay the dragon, use the magic sword. Please save me. The cage is locked with a key. The dragon keeps it around his neck. To slay the dragon, use the magic sword.
I think going way back in time was what I'd call the toilet paper version, which was a roll of cash register paper, and it would just roll it forward and backwards like a player piano, and there were hundreds of hand-painted pictures and text on each on this roll of cash register paper, and the computer would roll it to the one it wanted, stop, and then a light would light up behind, and there was this dark smoke glass, so you couldn't see it until the light lit up. And
so it was mechanical and computer.
Yeah, mechanical and computer.
How long before you came to us was that? Was that going months before or a year before?
It's probably more than 2 years before.
Wow.
And then after that, we took it to the toy companies, and they all loved it, and they had no idea how they would print that cash register paper. They had none. They said, we have no idea how we could do this, how we can manufacture it. And then, so I thought, well, we came up with what I call the Rolodex. And this thing was huge, this big, giant Rolodex with double cards. And it would go flipping through these hundreds of cards on each reel, and then stop, and then either this light or that light would light up, same thing with the smoke glass, and you would make your decision.
Determined, weren't you?
Well, I thought it was fun. Then we came up with the first Laserdisc version, which was still pictures. We evolved because for any given scene, we might have 5 or 6 stills, and we had for the first time live voice. And then that led to to Dragon's Lair for the coin-op, and we're saying, okay, well, if we're going to do this for coin-op, because we were also developing coin-operated games, and we said, well, if we're going to take this thing, at that time it was called Secrets of the Lost Woods, and that became Dragon's Lair. And Dragon's Lair was just a working name, and you know how that goes. It's stuck. If you recall, we had demonstrations and things working when you guys came out to show it to you, and I think the biggest point was when we saw The Secret of Nim, and I just went, wow, this is an incredible movie film, because I forgot that it was an animated film.
So you pitched the Rolodex
and called you.
I still remember the day you and Jim Pierce came to the studio, and when you guys left, we all looked at each other going, what are they talking about? I mean, it was just a different world, and all the way through it. I mean, probably, if you remember, you came to us, I think, in October of '82, and we jumped on it right away. And Don started thinking about designs and stuff like that, and then you sent over your first continuity of a sequence, and then he started asking questions like, "Wait a minute, we're going to go to a day. There's a moment any time during this little sequence of this particular room where he might die. We have to come up with ways of branching the
nomenclature, though, and we would say, this is a threat moment, this is a resolve moment. This is a new threat moment, this is a resolve moment. So we kept saying threat, resolve, threat, resolve. The one that you got me, because I was really out to lunch, was you said, even after you finish the animation, we're going to have to program it. And I thought, a program? Yeah, I know what a program is. You read it when you go to the theater. But I didn't know what programming meant, you know, and I knew that there was somewhere down in San Diego there was something weird going on. That's all I knew.
Well, it started with Rick's team, but then
I think there was an awful lot of controversy between our companies. It started out real good, and then I think it got pretty contentious. I think a lot of it had to do with the pressure too. We had the scripts, we had the artists that were doing all these concepts and so forth. And for the most part, our team had no clue about the art of animation.
True.
And so they were coming up with things that may or may not have been animatable at all from your all standpoint.
Yeah, it was sort of like we were lobbing stones at each other over a fence because we didn't know. I didn't understand your world at all, and then there was some reticence on what we were doing up there. So each was doing its own thing, what we were familiar with. We with animation, and they with the electronics. But also, Rick has a good sense of story and character, and so that's what I think was sustaining what was going on in your company. And then we were kind to grab the ball and run with it, but not knowing exactly what they were going to do with it when we reached the goalpost. Anyway, I think Dragon's Lair, the first one, would have been even better than it was, I think, if we understood each other's kingdoms a little bit better. But it was a moment of getting acquainted and we knowing what their job was and vice versa. But I believe just the story elements, that we hooked into almost immediately. And what we were trying to tell was a story of a knight who was a ne'er-do-well, who was sort of klutzy and didn't know quite what he was doing and wasn't very adept, trying to save a princess that was equally not adept. And so
I think that it is absolutely getting acquainted, because we were designing from a gameplay standpoint,
right,
and you were having to work from how do I bring it to life from an animation standpoint. And the problem was sometimes what we were ending up with wasn't playable as a game. It was beautiful as a piece of film, but that they would get it back and go, he changed it. How are we gonna play with this?
The way my brain has worked in the past is that I would see something and it would come on a concept. Maybe it's just in script form or written right there, and I'd say, oh, okay. So immediately I see the visions of it and what could be. So then, in so doing, I'm not gonna let those words stop me, because we have to push further. We have to push it to a place where we get something that's really, really excellent, which again, what you're doing is building on something that's been put underneath you. Mm-hmm. Well, those who put that there are going to feel like, oh, you didn't like what I did, And it isn't that at all. But I think anything, any creative or collaborative process that's creative is that you are building on an idea all the time. This is always happening. And if you let your ego get a little bit sensitive to that, then it kind of cripples you. You should know the ideas are going to come. They come from out there somewhere. And when they come to you, it doesn't matter who births it. You know, it's just you want to keep going for even more if you can get it even better. And I think that's what we were going through in the beginning was how to make the best thing game-wise and picture-wise on the screen so that the viewer could enjoy
Well,
it.
the other problem is we were in uncharted waters.
Completely,
So there, it was, you know, a ship without a helm sometimes because you had never been there and we had never been there, and trying.
That was fun though.
Trying to.
You don't know where you are.
And I think, you know, we survived it in Dragon's Lair, went on to become, you know, that unimaginable success because of the fact that we really were in uncharted waters, and I think our audience, which is the kids out there, they accepted it for what it was.
Yeah, I think that's what
they didn't have any milestone to compare it to. I want to start that out because we had a moviola, this little thing.
The next drawing we're going to do has two characters in it, and the two are Dirk and the dragon Singe. Now, Dirk is a little tiny character, and Dragon is a great big character, Singe is. So what I'm going to do to cheat this a little bit is I'll pull Dirk into the foreground so that he stays kind of big, and push the dragon into the background. And I think just to get this thing to work, I'm going to sketch out how I can do this. This dragon is sort of looking at Dirk like that. And I can bring all the tail up around like this. And maybe the legs of the dragon like that. So I think that's going to work. So the dragon, what I just told you, I think is really relevant here. What's the dragon doing? Is he excited? Is he angry? Does he want to get Dirk? All of that becomes really relevant. So I get a dragon that's going to be kind of that big. So Dirk, if I turn him around and put our back to us, we're not going to see him too much. But what I could do is have him, he's just made a swing at the dragon, and he's really in the foreground up here. So I'll put his head there, maybe arms like this. There's his sword. And so I want to do it in action because somehow the action always looks better rather than just standing there. And we'll say he has just swung the sword like that, but the dragon had stepped back and had missed. So that gives me an idea of what the picture's going to look like. Right now I've got this down in this corner, so it looks like we're going to probably have to take the little seal and put it over in this corner. But I think it'll work. So let's get this Singe dragon to work for us. Really important. I'm going to just slightly detail again, so I know what I'm drawing here. The eyes will be somewhere in there. The hard part about this dragon a lot of times is these big rims that are on his tummy. But once I kind of get the idea, then I can work with a little more confidence. I'm going to say the dragon is really, really angry or really fierce because it's going to make better drawing, which means his hands are going to take on kind of a stiff look. Shoulders up here. That's going to work great. Then I'll put all the spines and all the decoration on just a little bit later. Let's see what Dirk's going to look like. I think he's going to be looking back towards the dragon, so I've got the eye line right there, and I'm going to put his eyes looking up at the guy. So it's sort of like that. Here would be his helmet. There's the Dirk nose and the Dirk frown. that works. And his shoulders. It's really hard with human characters. You have to get the anatomy just right, or anyone looking at it says, it doesn't look right. And they'll spot it immediately. Even if they're not an artist, they'll spot it. So it'll be something like this. So far I'm fairly confident. I'm going to be careful of the little skirt, not to put it on too soon, because he's in motion. When a character is in motion, all the what we call the secondary action things, which would be things like cloth or hair or tails or anything like that, all of those things move according to what the character is doing. So I'm not going to put this on him yet. I'll just wait, and I'll know just what to do later on, but right now I don't know. Okay, so that gives me an idea how Jerk is going to look. So let's start detailing our dragon and see if we can't get this guy looking really terrific. Go up here. I'm going to have him, the eyes and the mouth are always really important. There's a knob on top of his head. And the brows are always a little darker than anything else. The cheeks of the dragon tell you, what he's doing. So I think the dragon has one of those mean kind of smiles on his face. And the big nostrils, which you can see. When we were first learning how to draw this dragon, everybody had a lot of fun with it because we hadn't a clue. No one knows what a dragon really looks like, unless you look at the kimono dragons. And you just don't know, so you have to make something up. So we stuck right on his bottom of his chin these two great big warts with these little growths that come out of them. And we went up at the top of his head, on the knot on top of his head, and did the same thing, so that he has these appendages that come out of his head. And it made him really interesting. Then we thought, well, why not put sort of like out of the same point right here, we're going to put these big fan-like things on his cheeks, which are like fins. And he suddenly got very interesting. And what we use these for is whenever he looked like he had a burst of adrenaline, these things would open up and these would straighten out so that it gave us little appendages that gave him expression. We thought we were so clever in those days. Now I'm getting the regular dragon tongue right now rather than having just spit the fire. So now let's head into the back of the dragon. He has all these really great looking spines on his back, which drive animators crazy. But they're also part of his charm. And if you go up here like this, you have to start putting all these little lines. Now these things tell you what the perspective of the dragon is. Since it looks like we're kind of upshot, I like to kind of change the direction and make them go up, so that we look like we're looking up underneath him, which I think helps. Now he's also a very strong guy, so you want to give him, all the musculature that he needs to be a dragon, and also a little detail that I'm going to get more into later on. So he has all these little warts all over him. So there we go. Let's draw his chest. On the chest, I'm going to continue these. So far, I'm liking it. I think it's going to be good. Right in here again, here's some of these little warts. They get all over his skin. I don't know what those are. It just makes him look a little bit kind of like an animal, so we do that. And I even forgotten who came up with that idea. But it was a combination of a lot of people working together. See, I've kind of got a straight over here with these curves. Those are playing against each other. And against the straight, here's another curve. But I don't want to parallel anything, because parallel lines usually are boring things. And here we go. Let's get into the legs. Again, since he is he's angry right now, I think what we want to do is we want to get all of the feet, the toes, the hands, the fingers, and all that to be very stiff looking. so that he's got them extended. And the claws on the end of them, it's going to make it look really, really good. All right. And right here, we'll do this, 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 and then get this other leg. And he has big fleshy legs, so don't be afraid if you're trying to draw this guy to make them kind of big and flat and fleshy, but also a real fleshy knee. There we go. And then on the spines, we won't see all the spines on the back of him. You'll see some over on this side. And then they pick up once again when you see the top of his tail. And they're not all the way down. I've chosen to put them partially down, and then there's a little smooth part where maybe some have fallen off, and then there's a few more, and then there's a few more. And I'm using this tail to draw attention to Dirk, who's out here in the open. So this is going like this. It's leading you right to look at Dirk. There's the bottom of his tail, a few more spines, not too many. It's what you leave out sometimes that makes it look good. Okay, let's do the other hand up here. This is claws. It's almost a human-looking hand, but not. This is foreshortened. So there's the bicep. Here would be the elbow down here. And then we decorate it with the few little warts. That does that. All right, let's finish off Dirk for us. We're almost there. There we go. Dirk is actually really fun to draw. And once you get the hang of him, I always enjoy doing this. Sometimes I can't exactly talk why I'm doing some of the things, but it's sort of an intuitive process after a while. So you get to know when the line is in the right place or it's not. Don't be afraid to use your eraser, because that's why we make mistakes. You just admit them, erase it, and go on. All right. Now Dirk, you have to think through this. You know, how is he grasping? Here's his hand. His thumb goes around the other side. This other hand is upside down, and this is the thumb here. All right, and so I'm liking that. Let's draw the hilt of the sword. This will tell us kind of how the sword angle is. There's the knob on the end of the hilt of the sword. Now we have to draw the sword itself. And there we are. Now I'm ready to kind of put clothes on this guy. And I know that I'm going to let that fly up there because he's moving forward, so this trails behind like a secondary action. There's his other leg. If it looks like at any time you don't like the way you've drawn this, just erase, and as long as you're drawing with a fairly soft pencil, you don't have a problem because you haven't grooved the paper. He has big, big legs down to him, almost no ankles at all. And no one knows why he has no ankles. We just accept it. So there's your Dirk. Now the last thing to stick in, of course, is these lines, speed lines that indicate the swing that he just took. And a little bit of a shadow will put him on the ground. And there you have Dirk and Singe. Okie doke.
Dragon's Lair. Time Warp.
Kidnapped? Oh, Daddy!
Idiot!
Spirited away to a wrinkle in time by the evil wizard Mordroc, Daphne will be forced to marry the wicked Mordroc unless Dirk can save her.
My Daphne kidnapped!
Mommy's gone.
Transported by a bumbling old time machine, Dirk begins the rescue mission.
Mine!
Do it for the children. Once the casket of doom has opened, Mordroc will place the death ring upon Daphne's finger in marriage, and she will be lost forever. In the Time Warp.
Oh, crap.
I'm just kidnapped by aliens, that's all.
Space Ace, defender of justice, truth, and the planet Earth. Ace is being attacked by the evil Commander Borf.
Hold your fire! Who is that creep?
Borf.
Earthlings must surrender to me.
No way, Borf, old buddy.
Oh! Ah! I've been hit!
By the Infanto Ray.
Earthlings must surrender to me.
Struggle with Dexter to regain his manhood. Destroy the Infanto Ray. Defeat the evil Borf.
Hey, Borf! Come on, Kimberly, let's go. I've been hit.
Be valiant, Space Warrior. The fate of Earth is in your hands.
Oh, crap.
I'm just kidnapped by aliens.
Dragons are in Space Ace. We actually overlapped the two productions. You know, his team, once they delivered all of their scripting and some of their storyboards, they jumped over on the Space Ace concept, and we started to receive that information. So when Don was done storyboarding and posing for the scenes and sequences of Dragons there, he jumped right over on what was coming to him.
Yeah, everyone
now.
was up to speed at that point. I mean, we
were meshing.
the teams knew what they were doing. They didn't know if they were doing it right, but they knew what they were doing at that point.
Well, I won that role by default because, you know, we just couldn't find anybody and we didn't have the money to go out and hire ourselves a really good actor.
No, you were the best.
No, it wasn't the best, but we could.
Well, that's because it was your voice. We thought it was the best.
Well, you guys, Paul Shinar would have done that voice very, very well. Paul Shinar, he did the part of Jenner in Secret of Nim, but he had a real low bass voice down there. With me, the electronics helped out a little because all I did was growl, like that.
Which is hard on your throat.
And, very, very hard. So then they would take that voicing, and with the electronic, they would push it down and do more stuff to it. So that it really, in the end, as I listened to it, I said, "Are you sure that's me?" Because I couldn't recognize my own voice. But it was fun. It was fun for a moment just being the bad guy.
Musically, the first Dragon's Lair was just almost like watching Law and Order on TV. It just had these little music stings every once in a while, or maybe 2 bars of music, and that would be it. But Chris Stone, the composer for Dragon's Lair, came back on Space Ace and actually gave it an underscore.
Yeah, score. Yeah.
So everything advanced, and even the cost of making each one of them advanced. The first one was like 1.3 million. Space Ace was 1.8 million.
I think that's part of the reason why Space Ace felt like it had the continuity is because of that score.
Oh, I believe so too. And then with Dragon's Lair 2, that was all the way up to 2.3 million. So I mean, it just kept jumping, but we just kept putting more into them because we knew we had to do something that would keep that audience entertained visually.
I think we just ran out of time with the cinematonics shutdown and everything. We basically had to change a guard of one of our partners who didn't want to proceed anymore. So what do you do?
And remember, now we were 70% done with Dragon's Lair 2, which would be about the time that we had the Beast project. I think some minor things done with it. We were getting ready to get going, but when they called and said, "Look, the bottom's dropping out of the market, and our creditors are getting nervous, and there's being a trustee assigned to the company, and they're going to shut it down," and we said, "Well, what about the bills?" They were leaving us high and dry too. So, and nobody had spread the money. We'd reinvested the money in making the games, but we hadn't cut profits to the 3 companies. They were sitting on all the money. There was less waste, I think, in Space Ace. I don't recall anything being cut out. Do you?
Well, just the occasional animation scene that wasn't very good, so we just threw it away and started again.
Well, Dragon's Lair, we had to cut, because we had a fatal design in the Laserdisc, the assumption about the Laserdisc, the search time, we cut 30% right there, and then of course when we cut things that we found weren't fun or didn't play right or whatever, so I think we were going through a learning curve.
Yeah.
So we were better at it.
So we were better at wasting
in the first one. My favorite scene in Space Ace probably is them on those power skates where they're going through all the canyons on that very strange environment. Below, I think they're right below at the bottom of where Borf's main camp is.
Mine was the space sleds with the orbs that would shoot at them if you didn't shoot.
Oh, yeah.
Mine was him on the bike where he's trying to get her to go to dinner with him.
Yeah, that's good.
The bike is inconsequential. It's all about the dinner.
We've had all the artwork for almost everything we've done. The Dragon's Lair, our first film in Don's Garage, Banjo the Woodpile Cat, and pieces of all the features, and especially the last 3 were passed on to us by the owners of the product. And last year, after spending close to $500,000 over 20 years to store the stuff, we elected to donate it to one of the colleges that offer animation. So the entire archive, which would fill a 2,000, I guess you'd have to multiply it into a cube. It was very tall shelves, industrial shelves, that every shelf was filled with our archive. And that is all with the Savannah College of Art and Design and at the disposal of those art students.
Oh, far out.